Are we live? I think we're live. Hopefully live. Hopefully we're live. Damn. Hopefully my mouth starts working a little bit better. What's happening, everybody? Hope you're having a fantastic whatever day you're watching this. So, just got back doing a little bit of data logging with little Miss Revlon. Had taken Stormy out for a little bit earlier too. Could not get better than that 1366. Traction and the ability to roll into the throttle was really the mitigating factor in that thing being able to go any quicker than what I had already gone, but still had a lot of fun with it no matter what. But yeah, just got back, was data logging the car, and man, gotta tell you guys, she's running good. You know, this time of year, you know, all of us guys with you know, hot rodded cars. I mean, this is your Christmas, both literally and kind of figuratively in a way. You've got the best air. The humidity is low. Air is crisp and cool. Cars are running really good. So before I get rolling into this, just as a little bit of a public service announcement, guys, be careful out there. So kind of a fun story about tonight. This actually is applicable to another night I was out data logging the car. Basically, it gave me an excuse just to play around with it. But just throttle, you know, coming around a U-turn, just rolling into the throttle, and the car just kind of doesn't really step out too hard, just kind of steps out just a little bit, and it's just carrying that step and thinking, man, this thing's running good. So rolling to the throttle, I was data logging anyway. I was going to have to go wide open at some point and had to kind of feather the throttle down into wide open throttle because she was just wanting to light the tires up, and didn't really stop doing that till about 70 miles an hour. Thing is, that's on drag radials. That's the scary part. I know there's guys out there that are, you know, thinking about, oh, I'm going to get a Hellcat. Hellcats are so much fun. Yay, Hellcat. Okay. If I had any advice to somebody that had a Scat Pack that was thinking about getting a Hellcat, I can tell you that Hellcats, when boost weather hits, if you've done any work to them whatsoever, get really sketchy. And I mean really sketchy in some cases, especially if you're not running drag radials. So anyway, word to the wise, make sure you're easing into it, fellas. And speaking of easing into it, I'll let a few more folks come in, but it's kind of interesting. So I'm doing this topic as a live show because I failed miserably trying to put this topic in a standalone video. Just like that video that I was talking about before in one of the other lives, where it was kind of chronicling some of my exploits, if you will, with roll racing. I was very involved with roll racing for quite a while. So much so, in fact, that you would think that that's all I would be doing now, that drag racing really wouldn't be part of what I do, but it's what I really like. But I was even more into roll racing than I ever was into drag racing for the longest period of time. Well, anyway, trying to put that video together as a standalone, it kept finding its own path, if you will. It just got a little bit too convoluted. So that's kind of what happened with this topic that I was going to talk about today. And it was really more along the lines of, you know, why are the tracks closing down? And what I was going to do is kind of tie all this together with a bit of an anchor, if you will. Like, let me give you an example of something that takes up as much space as a drag strip. Let me give you an idea as far as what kind of revenue that generates, what kind of tax revenue, what kind of incentives there are for municipalities to get involved with it, etc. And then it started really veering off into that direction. So far into that direction is that it put the drag strip comments and topic more or less in its rear view mirror, or at least on a shelf behind itself. And it could not get going. I played around with trying to record that for the better part of a couple of hours, and it just kept falling and tripping over itself. And you ever fall upstairs? That's what it feels like whenever you're trying to put one of those videos together that just doesn't work out. You got a great premise, a great direction that you're wanting to go, I may have 15, 20, 30 minutes of a video put together. It could be ready to post. And I'm just going, man, I can't post it because either I kind of skipped over some things got a little bit out of whack in terms of cadence. And so anyway, that's why a lot of times, and by the way, fun fact, that's kind of how the live show started to begin with. It was just topics that I would try to put a video together that it just the same thing. It just kept falling upstairs. I could not figure out a way to just get the thing out into the world the right way. Like I say, so that's where the live show kind of got started. Anyway, I'm going to check in with you guys and then I will get started on the topic, which is, why are these drag strips closing down? Why are we seeing and losing, I should say, so many drag strips? Well, there's some pretty interesting reasons. And if you give me a little bit of room, I might be able to illustrate some things for you that might kind of really set it into scale, if you will, blow your mind. Let's see. Carzilla's in, got the thumbs up. Sovereign's in. Rowboat saying good evening. What's up, man? Super Sock saying good evening, B. Got the flex. Ardell saying, what's up? Big guy is in, saying he can't stay. Battery's almost dead. I understand. Chuck is in. What's up, Chuck? Smoking saying, howdy, Professor. What's up, Smoking? Big guy saying, hey to Chuck. Looking for some love on YouTube, aren't we all? Yeah, all of us are hurting right now on the tube. Rowboat saying land prices up until recently have made everything, including racetracks, fair game to the highest payer. Sort of, yes. And we're going to get into that in just a second. Chuck saying, peace. Like that emoji too. Smoking saying, have you seen the new EV hypercar, the McMurdy? I haven't seen it. There's a lot of stuff coming out with, in fact, where are my glasses of professoring? There we go. Smoking saying the fan sound. Big guy checking out. Alex is in saying, what up, Mr. B? What's up, Alex? Doll is in. Tad is in. What's up, buddy? Smoking saying, I can't stay. Just want to drop a word about the McMurdy. I will check that out for sure. Thank you much. I'm saying the only EV I'm impressed with. Yep. Marvelous. I love that. I love the name. Phonetically spelled very well, sir. Saying hi. John the Baptist saying good evening and Merry Christmas. Good evening. Merry Christmas to you, Mr. John the Baptist. Apropos to say Merry Christmas, by the way. So I'll tell you, okay, so let's jump into this, guys, because this is a topic that for some of you guys that may have seen the video, I did a standalone video that was basically lamenting the fact that Houston Raceway Park was going to be closing its gates permanently after the 2023 season. And in subsequent comments and just chats with just friends of mine, a lot of it was, well, and there's always the they, right? There's that they that seems to lurk out in the ether that so they are just greedy. That was a big response. They are sellouts. They don't care about the racers. Things like that. They complain about street racing, and I understand where all of this is coming from. And one of the arguments that you'll hear people say is, well, it's a business, right? I mean, it really is. It's a business, but you also see things like golf courses. And this is where that video was going to go. Okay. So I'm going to kind of do that video for you guys now, but it's going to be interactive a little bit. And I'll kind of walk through that and let you know where this all finds its place. So the reason why I was going to bring up a golf course is because a golf course takes up, and the development around it take up about the same amount of land as a drag strip, a proper drag strip too, not some, bomb shelter with a big long driveway. What I'm talking about is something that is not necessarily world class, but something that is built to last and that you'd want to go to. So to build a drag strip, a quarter-mile drag strip, you're going to need somewhere around 500 acres, give or take. And that sounds like a lot, but when you start to parse it up, it really isn't. I'll give you an example. The golf course that I was talking about that would cost about the same to build as a drag strip would really only take up that 500 acres. It would really only be about 200 acres. That would be a long par 5 golf course. But that 200 acres would also incorporate 300 acres of developmentable land. And so when you think about that, it's something to kind of tie this to. We want to talk about, why is it that a municipality would invest in a golf course, but they wouldn't invest in a drag strip? There's a lot of reasons. And not that anybody was asking the question, but it's just kind of where my mind went. Like, why isn't there like a Johnson County Municipal Drag Speedway? You don't ever hear of anything like that. So for obvious, there's a lot of reasons why, but a lot of it is just flat out developmental costs. I mean, you have 500 acres of a drag strip. None of that can generate tax revenue. Whereas if you have something that's 500 acres, but say 200 acres of that 500 acres after it's been developed can generate, let's say 200 has 800 houses, and those 800 houses are going to generate $3 million, $4 million in tax revenue, not to mention businesses and everything else. You can kind of see where this is going. So, drag strips are loud. They're out in the middle of nowhere. Golf courses are near the city. And I guess the idea here was, when we're talking about the they that doesn't care about the racers, or the they that complains about street racing, it's like, well, they aren't fitting the bill to build the drag strip the way that they are paying for a golf course. And not to mention, there's just a lot, there's so much more that come with it, but let's get into the whys. And anyway, that was where the video was going. You can kind of see it really wasn't, it's not like it was really going anywhere. It would start, it would get going. I'm like, that's kind of a stupid premise. And anyway, so that's kind of a look behind the mind real quick. But anyway, why are they shutting down? Most of it has to do with urban sprawl. When these drag strips are built, they're typically built out in the middle of nowhere where land is relatively cheap. And you need about 500 acres to put together a decent enough facility. And you've got to have access to major highways. And it's got to be easy to get to. And what ends up happening is you build something 30 miles out in the middle of nowhere, at least you think that it is. And then next thing you know, the city or the municipality that you're involved with in this case is steadily growing. And so that makes it difficult as time goes on, assuming that your business model was solid enough for you to stay in business for however long it was you're in business. It gets to a point where that sprawl catches up with you. And remember that thing I was talking about with tax revenue and the land being able to generate X number of dollars in tax revenue. Well, that's going to trump anything that track can put out. And usually by that time, and this is probably more to the point, and this is really what happened with Houston Raceway Park. This Houston Raceway Park wasn't really more an urban sprawl thing. It was really more in lines with, man, guys, that facility was 35 years old. In fact, at the end of 2023 would have been its 35th year in continuous operation. And you got to think, well, what all upkeep has to be done on any road that's out there that you can think of after 35 years of use? Well, that drag strip has to be continuously upkept. Stripped, capped, everything you can think of, sections replaced. It's not cheap. And one of the things that is tough is when you have a world-class facility like Houston Raceway Park, as time marches on, and time takes its toll on that facility, and you start to look at the property itself, your tax base, your assessed value keeps going up, up, and up. And next thing you know, you're in a situation where, just to keep the place in business, based on just the land value alone, you could be looking at $130,000, $150,000, $180,000 a year just in property taxes. And that's assuming that the whole place is paid off and all you're doing is keeping the land, so to speak. It could cost you somewhere in the neighborhood of 1.5% to 2% just to keep the land solvent. In other words, just to keep it rolling. So that's kind of a tough to crack. And you go, well, how many cars would you have to have Friday night street racing just to pay for the property taxes? What's crazy is that, let's say you have this track is supporting, say, 200 cars every Friday. Well, if you do the math on that, it ends up being roughly, like, say, 4 Fridays a month, if you will, on average, at $30. It's what, maybe 24 grand a month that you're bringing in. And so with that alone, and that's at $30 a head, 200 cars would be a huge night, by the way. You really want to knock that down to about 150 when you think about it. Now that I'm thinking about it, talking about it out loud, that let's say 300 cars, 600 cars, that'd be about $18,000 a month. Yeah. And if you back $18,000 into what that property tax is, basically Friday night street racing, I mean, it's paying for the lights, some of the help, and property taxes. That's it. That's not keeping the place afloat. That's assuming that that property is completely paid off. So when you think of it from that point of view, Friday night street racing ain't going to keep your place in business. And again, what if you're paying for the track also, the build out, the land and everything else as you go? Well, you're going to have other events. You're going to have racing events, shopping events like swap meets and giant outdoor flea market type events. You're going to have music festivals, the Christmas light attractions that are going on right now. Those are all necessary to keep that track afloat. That along with drag racing events. I mean, you've got some tracks have Cletus and Cars or events like it. You've got car shows. You've got, like down here, the truck events, the nostalgia events. You've got the import nights. You've got all the Mopar events, Chevy, Super Chevy, Fast Forward, all of that has to be in effect. And those events take place on the weekends. So even the example that I gave, you're going to have to take out some of those weekends for these festival events. So it's pretty weird. You start looking at the financials of putting a drag strip together and what it would cost to actually keep the thing running. And it is extremely expensive, not to mention just the regular upkeep of the place. And drag racing, you got to have VHT. VHT is extremely expensive. They don't give you the lights for free. All of that, it just keeps adding up and up and up. And next thing you know, you look at this, and it's really more of a passion project than anything else. What you're doing is you're putting this purchase together of this land in the facility. And you're hoping that you can keep this thing going. You're really into racing. You're really into the community. You're trying to keep this thing going just long enough to where the property value gets to a point where you're making money on the come. In other words, you're making money on the fact that the property value is rising as the sprawl is heading your way, and you don't cash in on any of your investment realistically until you slam domino on the sale of the property itself. Not a really good business model, but unfortunately, that is what it really does boil down to for a lot of these tracks. So you might say, well, what about NHRA events? What about, all these events? Yeah, you make really good money throughout those events, but you have to remember that at the end of the day, at the end of the year, I should say, a track has got to be able to be profitable. A track has got to be able to show an actual profit at the end of the year, or at least break flat even to stay in business. And a lot of these tracks simply aren't able to do that. Large events, they're just not capable of hosting them. You've got the diversity of events, maybe they can't geographically manage. And so there's a lot of that that comes into play when we're talking about why it is that these drag strips are basically going out of business, if you will. But there's another side to it too. And this is a little bit more of, not really a browbeating thing, but it is what it is. A lot of folks don't want to spend money to run their cars at a drag strip. They don't understand that there is a significant cost to that facility. And so when they take their car to the drag strip and they're asked to pay, $30 to run their car, I've even heard people say, my God, it's a ripoff. And I'm going, well, wait a minute. How is that a ripoff? First of all, what's funny is that a lot of times guys that will complain about paying to run their cars at the drag strip, well, you're also paying for spectators are paying, and you also have a concession stand. There's other revenue sources for the drag strip. But here's the thing. When we're talking about the guys that are paying for their car to run, guys show up with a car or truck, whatever it is. So you have that level of investment, thousands of dollars. You've got, again, thousands of dollars, in many cases, tens of thousands of dollars to modify the car to do whatever it is you're going to do with that particular car. Only to complain about $30 to run your car at the facility that you kind of presumably literally built the vehicle to run at. Don't understand it. And the fact that it's only $30 down here, it's only recently been bumped up from $20 to $30 blows my mind, because back in the day it was $20, and we're talking 30 odd years ago. I mean, we're pushing half a century over here, and it was $20. Inflation, if you're just to keep up with it, would be $40 or $45. And that's what it really needs to cost, around $50. And I'll go back to that example of the golf course. An average greens fee in the United States is right around $50. So if you want to go play golf, it's going to cost you at least $50. Balls are going to cost you $24-ish. The rest of the crap that you're going to need is going to have a price tag associated with it as well. So yeah, it's very easy to look at golf because, again, the initial costs are very similar. Roughly, again, $25 million to put a drag strip together, about the same for a golf course. Your greens fee, or it's kind of like your entry fee if you're racing your car, it all kind of plays along the same value. So, it would blow my mind when guys just didn't want to pay. They said, well, we can't pay that much. And it's like, well, you didn't have any problem spending thousands of dollars modifying your car. You kind of might want to spend the money to play with this thing at a proper facility where it's safe. By the way, speaking of safe, the other thing that comes along with drag racing is you got to have EMTs on staff, or on site, I should say, not on staff, for insurance purposes. That's expensive. It's just so many expenses, and they're all expensive. So anyway, that was really where I was going to go. That's kind of where the whole video that I was trying to put together, that's the direction that it was going in. And it basically, like I say, it just kept falling upstairs. So I was trying to explain in kind of more real terms the why behind some of these tracks closing down. So yeah, again, do with that what you will. But it's kind of funny because, like I say, I was just out playing around with the car a little. Data logging. I just took the car out for a little bit and was thinking, man, it'd be great if that track was open tonight. I would love to take advantage of it because that car was screaming. And one of the funny things about it is, again, that car on drag radial hazing the tires on a partial throttle roll in. It's a lot of times I'll say with a Hellcat or with modified cars in general that are at about that same power to weight ratio, it's just kind of funny because you go, man, listen, you can't really use that much power on the street. You can't. I mean, the tires don't allow for it. And you have to be running drag radials just from a safety point of view, even though I'm lighting up drag radials, partial throttle. But recently somebody had asked me to, well, if I were to recommend, would it be a Scat Pack or a Hellcat? And I saw the question pop up after I'd been driving my car. And I was like, dude, you get a Hellcat every time. But the reality is that if anybody with any less experience were to be behind the wheel of my car tonight and were driving it the way that I was driving it, it probably would have gotten wadded up. And I am not saying that for effect. I had that car hazing the tires up. It started hazing the tires at about 40 or 50 miles an hour. I rolled out of it, rolled back into it again a little bit harder, started hazing the tires again, and then progressed it down to wide open throttle. And the car is just hysterical when she's just being a little bit fishy. You use that kind of power on the street, but when you do use that kind of power on the street, it can be fun, but very dangerous. And I've seen how that could possibly have ended very poorly if it were somebody else that didn't have the experience level that I do. Modern Red saying, here's what's happening is, housing areas are being built closer and closer to the tracks that have been there like 50 years. That's true. Look at Cletus at Bradenton. Yep. A lot more to it, but that's what's going on. And that is what's going on. It's what we were just talking about. Yeah, Bradenton's in danger. It's not just Bradenton. There's actually quite a few that are out there. Red saying, good evening. Good evening. But there's quite a few that are in danger of having that type of a situation, have them that housing the sprawl, if you will, put them out of business and cause them to relocate. And that's the problem, is that you can't take I love Bradenton, by the way. I love racing at that track. But you can't take, how do I put this? I can't replicate Bradenton for a reasonable amount of money. Like, I can't say that, how do I put this? I can't say that I could replicate Bradenton for a reasonable amount of money that would be sustainable for any real length of time. In other words, it would be tough to keep that track alive because of the amount of money that you would have to shell out. I mean, yeah, you would get something for selling that particular facility, but man, it becomes tougher and tougher and harder to justify unless you've got an in and you are actively going to be putting events together at that facility. So Nick's in. What's up, brother? Saying, evening B, y'all have a good one. I'll catch the replay. Very cool. Good to see you, brother. Mark's saying, hey, Mason just ordered an HRT Stage 2 comp cam. Very nice for the RT with supporting mods. I'm excited as hell to hear that thing chop. Should sound pretty good. The Stage 2 is not that aggressive in a 392, but will probably do just what you want it to in that 5.7. Again, I know the cam fairly well, as it's extremely close to one of my grinds. Isn't that nice? Anyway, but yeah, I mean, that's the thing. You got Bradenton. There's a lot. There's some I haven't even heard of. In talking to some folks who are saying, yeah, you got this one, you got that one, and that one. I'm going, I haven't even heard of some of these tracks. So anyway, I guess the bottom line to this is, guys, get out there and support your local track. Get out there and support the folks that are supporting the lifestyle that we all know and love with racing, drag racing, and the like, because Capital in Maryland is another one. Damn, that sucks. Because there's going to come a time where, a lot of these tracks aren't going to be around, and the prospect of putting another one on the ground is tough. Like I say, I'd be first in line to try to help with anybody that I knew of that would want to put land on the ground, I would be trying to find them land, whatever type of developers, contractors, everything I could think of to try to help them out. The problem is, it ain't like people are lining up to replace Houston Raceway Park. And that's kind of the other side to this discussion, is that, yeah, you have tracks that are looking to get absorbed, if you will. But the thing about it is that you don't see anybody going, oh, that was shutting down. Damn. Okay. Well, we're going to open up one. It's going to be about 30 miles outside of town on the north, southeast, or west side, whatever. You don't hear that. And again, because you don't seem to have guys lining up and just willing to jump into building a track or re-renovating a track. If the track is more or less, the owners are going, man, we just don't want to do this anymore. We'll either rent it or we'll lease it or whatever the case is. But this track, some of these tracks have been around for a long time. 35 years is a long time, especially if you're 45 or 50 when you built the track. You're getting up there in age and don't really feel like working anymore. So, there could be some things like that are going to be involved. Some situations, I should say, like that are going to require somebody to maybe put in a substantial amount of effort and absorb a lot of cost just to bring a track up to snuff. And again, that's a tall ask for an investment that may not pay you back until you sell the thing. And again, that's kind of the rough part of it is, you see these tracks, you assume they're making a ton of money. And even if they're dragging in a ton of revenue, the odds are very good that they've got so much outflow between taxes, insurance, EMTs, folks that are working there, upkeep, repairs, and everything else, that at the end of the year, they're doing good to be in the black. And so, they're just hoping that their property value rises to a point where they can go, okay, look, man, we can return 30-40% on our money. Go ahead and wrap this up. And if it's 10 years, that's only an increase that would be keeping up with inflation, by the way. I mean, you go, man, you paid $8 million for it. You put $10 million into it. You got 18 and you're going to get 27. You're like, yeah, but to get that money would mean that you have to wait, in essence, the same amount of time that you could have been investing in very, very safe stocks and have the same financial return on the back end. Now, granted, you wouldn't have a drag strip to talk about, but you wouldn't have any work to put into it either. So there are some very unfortunate realities to the track. And the other thing is this, you just don't make money with these things like you used to. An NHRA event, you're not going to be making a ton of scratch just because NHRA showed up to your drag strip. They take a pretty significant cut. It's not like you're getting a whole lot of money from this. And so there's not a lot of residuals. About the only thing that you can hope for in that type of a situation is that you get some corporate sponsorship of your track. And this is something that we haven't really talked about, but some level of corporate sponsorship. You had, Houston Raceway Park was Royal Purple. Then it was Houston Raceway Park powered by Pennzoil. You had those types of, you had those types of incentives. In other words, that is a revenue stream, but without a significant sponsor, it's just like owning a race team. Without a sponsor, without the money, you don't have the race team. Kind of like if you don't like, subscribe, and share to the channel. Anyway, you know what I'm talking about, guys. It's really tough. It's harder now. You don't make as much money per head walking through the gate. And it just makes the proposition of the investment it's a really tough one. Again, it is more a passion project than anything else nowadays. Some are saying like, share, subscribe, then hit that notification bell. Absolutely, guys. Helps the channel out a ton. You have no idea. It's all the logarithms. It's not the same as it used to be in YouTube. Used to be, it was just a whole lot different. Let's put it to you that way. So yeah, the more, if you're watching and you haven't subscribed, please consider subscribing, hitting that notification bell so you can find out each and every time my bald head is coming across your computer or phone screen. So anyway, getting back to the car though today, I posted up a video earlier of me basically just working on the car, and it's kind of funny. So let me just walk you through the why behind it. Talking to a buddy of mine, and we were on the subject of catch cans. Like in other words, he was telling somebody, "Nah, I don't run any catch cans." In fact, he had bought some, put them on the car, ended up taking them off and selling them on. And we're basically just talking about, well, how much oil, how much condensation, how much funk is actually drawn through these cars. And it was kind of funny, really, because I was like, man, I don't know. I've got to pull my intake apart. I'm going to clean everything up because I'm running the JLT intake, and I'll take a look at the snout whenever I get to that point. But what I did was, in the process of pulling the JLT off the car and cleaning it, what the hell just flew in my face? And cleaning the intake tract and the snout, I wanted to show you guys the difference with just the dusting, just the dirt and whatever, the contamination that was getting into the snout of the car that wasn't happening with the stock paper filter. And so I tried filming it, or tried getting a video of just the snout itself. And the problem is that it just looked like the snout. It wasn't really showing up that it was dirty necessarily. And so what I did is I cleaned all that. It's just a real fine dust. It's just kind of in the pores of the metal, because I mean my blower's not ported. And I laid out all of the basically the rags that I had used to clean all of that out of there. And so it was just kind of a fun illustration. If you're running a K&N, or if you're running a green filter, running one of these open element cold air kits, make sure that you are cleaning your filter regularly, that you keep it oiled, that you keep the system kind of clean so that you're not getting the throttle body caked or anything like that. I think I even tried showing some of the cake that was on the throttle body as well. But here's the funny thing. So I'm putting the thing back together, and I'm like, this video is not working out. I'm trying to do all that. Finally, I get everything done and go to drive the car. And what I'm doing is I'm just driving it, keeping fuel circulating through it, because if we get really good air and get a track rental come up, I want to be able to jump on it, see if I can cover a number with the car. It's the last year, coming into the last full year of the drag strip. I want to, stay active and support that. And so anyway, so for you guys that don't know, I am extremely particular about making sure that the throttle body goes back on the car the right way, that it's lined up properly, because there's some play, there's some wiggle room, and I'm just real particular about how everything goes back together. So much so that it's probably borderlining on OCD, but I'll take it, because that's how sometimes it's the weird ones that actually get the win. And so that's one of the things about me. I'm very particular about how things fit and go back together. But it doesn't mean that I don't make mistakes. So I get the car all put together and close the door, hook up the data logger, fire up the car, and everything's cool. The car's kind of warming up, and I look over and the check engine light's on. Now, let me tell you where my head went. All right. Because it's me, right? I'm thinking the check engine light's on. What did I do? Did I jack up one of the connectors? Is there a wire that's messed up? How did I mess something up? I'm thinking that I'm like, oh man, it's too close. It's to January and February race season. Anyway, what had happened was all these things, it's like a block of thought that goes through your head and then you're over it within it, like fractions of a second. But it's like, what the hell? Why would I have that? So anyway, what had happened was I put everything back together, but I didn't clip the connector for the throttle body. Hey, I mean, I'll admit anyway, so I popped the hood open, I'm looking and it's just dangling there. I'm going, you gotta be kidding me. So put it back together and then did a throttle body relearn. Actually, I did 2 throttle body relearns, which is in essence just a protocol for the computer so that it'll open the throttle wide open and close it and it gives it a reference. But anyway, it was pretty funny. So that happened today. So there you go. Yeah, Joseph saying, don't. Yeah, pretty much. That's me. So anyway, let me get back up here. Chuck saying, what is the future for drag racing? NHRA doesn't guarantee success to a track, but people going there spending money does. Correct. People need to get off their Xboxes and go to their local tracks. And so isn't that really part of the conversation though? Is that a lot of people have got a lot more things that they can spend their money on that for entertainment dollars, in other words, and they also have a lot more bills than what they used to. Cars are a lot more expensive too. So it's all about what kind of expendable dollars that you have. And like I say, if you're into cars and you're not going to your local track, start going to your local track. Support them, support the concession folks. It's funny, I'm cool with everybody, and these guys don't know me as the guy that they've seen or heard of on the internet, on the YouTube thing or anything like that. Far from it. They could not be any less interested in my YouTube channel. They just know me as me, and so I catch hell and have a good time hanging out with the concession staff. I'm talking to everybody when I'm up there. So it's just kind of funny. How's it going? It's going good. How's track prep? How's the car? All this other. They know that part about me. These guys aren't. Some of them know about the YouTube channel, and some of them are like they could not possibly care any less. So, and those are the guys I sometimes like hanging out with the most because they're pretty honest with me, and besides, they hook me up, man. I mean, Frito pie the size of a cow's head. I mean, that's my jam. So anyway, Chuck saying it's okay to be a smartphone zombie as long as you're at the races filling your faces with hot dogs and a drink, for sure. By the way, that's one of the things that I'm really going to miss is the concession side of it because, man, you get a hell of a good burger. The dogs are good. Frito pie is legit. Just the whole scene, it just sucks. The Channel 13 interview that I was interviewed about the closing of the track. I happened to be at the drag strip. It's not like they called me up and said, yo, bald dude, man, get down here to the, well, I like that. But one of their reporters was there. A couple of people saw her go, no, you need to go talk to that dude. So anyway, that was one of the things that I mentioned in that on-air interview was that it's the sights, it's the smells, it's the sounds, it's the everything. It's not just the racing. It's that slice of Americana that you're going to be losing. It's that part of the whole experience of being where you're at that you're going to lose. And that's the thing that sucks the most. So, I mean, there's a lot of places you can get a burger, but man, I got to tell you, burger at the track's always the best. Let's see. Joseph saying, how? Chuck saying, I go to my local tracks often in season, modified street stock, oval racing, etc. Absolutely. Someone saying, welcome to Beast Corner, Joseph. Joseph gets saying, don't, yeah, with me not plugging in my, I'll tell you something. It's not the first time I've done that. I don't know what happens, man. I get started doing something else. I don't know. At least I'm consistent. And I know exactly what I did right when it happens too. Nitro saying, hey, B, I haven't cleaned my throttle body. Is there any kind of coating we have to worry about? And is carb cleaner or an air intake type aerosol preferred? There is actually it's almost like a watered down brake cleaner. Don't use direct brake cleaner. Do not grab brake cleaner to clean throttle body, by the way, because it's a lot of brake cleaner has chlorine in it, and chlorine and aluminum don't play nice. So there is a product that is throttle body cleaner. Get that, and then get you some microfiber towels. Do not go in there cleaning it with paper towels. Paper towels are going to, they kind of shred a little bit as you're using them. You'll get paper towel boogers all over the inside of that thing. So don't do that. In fact, after you clean everything out, just talk about your throttle body, but if you're cleaning intake or whatever out, always vacuum out that area when you're done anyway. It's just best practices. But yeah, there is a, does BG sell it? Crap, I can't remember. I can't remember because I never even paid attention to the brands. But anyway, look for a cleaner that is specific to throttle bodies. Now, here's what you're going to want to do. If possible, remove the throttle body. You're not going to soak the throttle body or anything like that. Just spray the areas that you need to have cleaned. Just do a small bit at a time. Spray the areas that you need to have clean and let it rest. Give that product time to get in there and break down some of the funk, and then use your microfiber to kind of start getting that stuff off of the assembly. Don't worry if it's taken longer than what you think it should take. That stuff is thick, very viscous. It's stuck to the aluminum. It's going to take a minute for that stuff to actually break that buildup down if you've got a lot of buildup. And I can speak a lot about this from experience because Foxy had a ring around her throttle body. It was bad. In fact, I should probably clean that thing again. I didn't pull the throttle body off the car to clean it, but it still has the EGR, EGR. What am I? That's your friend in the chipper. Anyway, so it has the EGR set up on it, so it's all still connected to the cooling system. Big mess to remove all that. But anyway, that and the Camaro with the throttle body throttles, same thing. They needed a lot of cleaning. So just again, let the product work, let it do its thing, and you'll be good. Chuck saying, if I didn't have my Scat Pack, I would have more expendable income, but screw that. It's worth every penny to me. Guys, I have wasted a lot of money in my life, a whole lot of money on cars and racing and doing a lot of really dumb stuff, but doing it really fast. And I can tell you this, I'm definitely living in the moment at that juncture. Still am for the most part in my life. And I tell you what, I've wasted a lot of money doing this stuff, and I wouldn't have it any other way. I mean, I have met some of the best people. I've had some of the most fun. And in a lot of ways, I'm prone to being pretty risky anyway, just with some of the dumb stuff and situations I've found myself in the past. It's probably for the best that I was into racing, whether it was cars, motorcycles, or whatever it was that I was really into. Because if I get into anything, I'm really, really, really into it, and will dissect it as best I can. So you know what? Maybe maybe I'm still alive because I was doing so many stupid things. Who knows? Joseph, thank you very much. Love the emoji. Thinking about my track debut, any advice? 2017 Scat, front rear sway bar and front rear strut tire braces. Best it's ever felt under me. Very nice. Stock 245s, which is about a bummer. So are we talking about, because you've got a lot of you've got a lot of modifications for handling, really, in this case. So what I would say, if you're talking about drag racing, you're going to want to put that car on a tire for sure. Mainly because you're making too much power for the 245s, as you already know. So a 275 40 drag radial on those same rims. If you can just pick up an extra set of rear wheels, 245 40 20s in drag radial will help that car a ton at the drag strip. Wouldn't hurt it either on a road course. Road course. Best advice I can give you: monitor your oil temperature. Make sure that your oil temps don't get above, say, 245, 250 degrees on track. You might, Chuck saying my 21 Scat came with 275s. Correct. Yes. The Dynamics package, the original SRT style. But yeah, the other ones only come with a 245. It's flipping criminal, if you ask me. But anyway, where was I going with that? So for any kind of road course, anything like that, oil temperature is going to be key, because you don't want to run into a situation where you're breaking down oil. But chances are you won't. I mean, I don't think you're going to be doing 20-minute sessions with the car. So there's that. If you have, of course, any extra weight, clean the car out completely if you're doing the road course thing. And again, for drag racing, and for road racing or anything, again, make sure your fluids are at capacity. Make sure your oil is fresh. Make sure your tires are fit for what you're going to be putting them through. Now, all of these things are 100% applicable to what you are going to be up to. So, and don't be afraid. And the main thing is, don't be afraid to do two things when you're on track. Don't be afraid to make a mistake, and don't be afraid to lift. In other words, it is a symptom of intelligence. It's a sign of intelligence. A symptom of intelligence works too. But sometimes I don't have many of those. That is an illness. Sometimes I do tend to not have. It's wise to know when you have reached your limitations, whether you're on a road course or drag racing, roll racing, it doesn't matter. Everybody has a specific skill set, and that skill set is constantly evolving. If you play with the car a lot, you get out there and goof off and enjoy it, you will develop a quick skill set, and you'll be able to make the car do things that you didn't ever think would be able to be done with your car. And a lot of times that is to save yourself and to bail yourself out of situations that you found yourself in. Thank goodness for autocross for me, and for a granddad that would, y'all kind of know this. For some of you guys that are new to the channel, my granddad raced cars right after World War II. Raced what would end up being NASCAR later on, just with stock cars back then. And so part of the fun of being a kid with a granddad like that was he had it was a Super Sport El Camino and an old Dodge truck. And basically we'd go out to the oil field roads. He'd have a 6-pack of Miller Lite with him. This is after Pabst Blue Ribbons Day. He had a 6-pack of Miller Lite. It was Control the Skid. So he'd have me on these old shale oil field roads in this truck or that old El Camino. And we'd slide off. There weren't any ditches. There were just berms that would come up. If you're familiar with these types of, oil field roads or farm roads, like a true farm road, if it's paved, they just have these little berms. And if it's not paved, they just have a larger berm that you hit, or, you don't run off the road. It was just the berm. It was cut into the ground. So anyway, it was fun, and really fun. And we used to get into we wouldn't get into trouble. This is in an area geographically and at a point in time where a granddad with his grandson, and the granddad about four beers into a 6-pack, and having this kid, this little 10, 12-year-old kid, they'd laugh at you, just make sure y'all get home safe. But also it didn't hurt that he knew a lot of those guys too. So anyway, trips down memory lane. A lot of those, by the way, with that. It was a lot of fun being a kid. But anyway, Anyway, wherever I was. Oh, so anyway, the point of that is just get out there and have fun. Don't be afraid to fail. Don't be afraid to make mistakes. You're not going to get it right every time. Professionals don't get it right every time. Haven't you noticed? Right. So don't be afraid to fail. Fail is fun. Besides, stories of success suck. Stories of failing are awesome. And I got a lot of those. So anyway, those are some of my words of wisdom. Is number one, make sure you're playing and having fun. Develop your skill set. Don't be hard on yourself. Don't be afraid to lift. In other words, there is no ego in racing at all. If you find yourself in a weird spot, lift, roll out of the throttle. It's just part of the experience. Believe me. I just had to do it tonight, as a matter of fact. Joe saying, I'm racing against me, just fun. I'm not buying another one. Yeah, no, that's for sure. That's the thing. I mean, like I said, get out there, have fun with it. Don't take it too seriously. Too many guys take this stuff way too seriously. I mean, I've taken it seriously because I'm more into the science of it. The nerd part of me just flourishes in all of this. But just as long as you're having fun, truly having fun, goofing off, and you're in the moment, and it's a positive energy for you, man, stick with it and roll with it, because that's the most enjoyable and the most rewarding part of it. Plus, you're having fun, good vibes. You're going to attract other guys. You start trading stories, and it's a lot of fun. That camaraderie really does start to kick in. And, from there, like I say, it is a lot of fun. So, but anyway, getting back to it. Yeah, I'm going to have to finish going, nut and bolting the car. The car is in really good shape. One thing I will say this time of year, I ought to go get it. So if you are checking the oil and I am obnoxiously particular about where the oil level is in my car. It's another one of those things where I am just, it will take me 2 days to actually change the oil in my car with how I add oil to that car where I want it to be exactly on the dipstick too. Again, that's who I am. But anyway, if you take the oil fill cap off the valve cover and you look at it, especially this time of year, it'll have that little milkshake film to it. And you're like, oh my God, my car, it's blown up. It's like, no, it's just condensation. And I know this. And the car got to temperature, and I was driving it for a while. Oil temp was 180 degrees. Everything's cool. But it's just funny because even I look at it and go, oh my God, my car blew up. I'm over going, don't worry about it. It is what, but it's just funny because you look at it and that first knee-jerk reaction is a minor freak out. So, Monterey saying that's how I got into the bottomless rabbit hole. I met a bunch of grateful guys at the track and been downhill since then. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and that's why I say most of my best friends I've met racing. I cannot imagine a point in my life where I wasn't racing something, where I wasn't involved with racing, wasn't thinking about racing, and all of that. It was just always I was born with that. So I had my first motorcycle at the age of 5 and haven't looked back. I'm sorry, 6, and haven't really looked back since. And Modern Red and an empty wallet. Listen, you ain't doing it right if you still got money in the bank, bro. Listen, this is not a lifestyle for the broke. Well, it is in a way, because you're going to get to that point anyway. So well, if you got stuff and you're broke, then that means you probably spent it in the right place. That's like what they say, if you want to make a small fortune in racing, you got to start off with a large fortune, right? But listen, we all have a good time with it. We all have fun. And, like I say, I have never not enjoyed it. Even when I was away from it briefly, I was still kind of involved with it, just in different ways. So there's that. But anyway, guys, with that, we are coming up on an hour. I'm going to finish up working on this contraption. I want to thank each and every one of you guys for hanging out with me tonight. And we went Monterey maxed credit cards. I've got some funny stories about my ID, not funny, but interesting stories about my ID getting lifted. And it has to do with somebody bought. Okay. So I'll tell y'all this story real quick, and then I got to check out. If y'all want to, I'll tell it again if you want me to say it later. But so this is years and years ago. I got a toll road violation notice in the mail. I'm like, what the hell is this? It's not even my car. And so I'm looking at it, and it wasn't a car. It was it was an F-250 crew cab dually. And it was a Laramie. It was not a Laramie. It was the Ford version of the Laramie. Anyway, it was real pretty. God, this is probably 12 years ago. And so I let toll road authority know. I said, listen, that's not my vehicle. And they started rattling off. They said, okay, well, is your name Brian Mason? I said, yeah, of course. This is your address. Yes. They start rattling off like some important information about me. And I'm like, how does, I didn't even realize the toll road had this kind of information, but anyway, go ahead. Said, okay, well, you need to get this involved. They got the cops involved. Long story short, somebody bought this truck about a year and a half prior to them running toll roads. And what had happened was, this is back when the toll tag was an actual, like a big plastic tag. Something happened and it quit working. I don't know. I'm not a toll road expert. I just know that the truck was doing just fine, and then it started getting clipped going through the toll road. So that conversation set off a chain of events. Come to find out, somebody had taken my identity, went to a Ford dealership, and bought this truck. But the best thing about this is that they bought the truck and they were making payments on the truck. And the weird thing about it is that they used a lot of my identity, but somehow or another, they were forwarding all of their information was still tied to their address. So it's like I had two addresses. Anyway, don't know what to tell you, but anyway, I guess they caught the guy, but come to find out, yeah, I apparently was the owner of this truck and had no idea they were making payments on it. My credit score went up. So good on them. That's been a long time ago. Weird situation. That isn't the first time something weird like that's happened. Chuck saying normal drivers will never understand the lust for horsepower. No, they won't. X is in saying, whatever, Professor B in chat. We are checking out now, X, but thank you for stopping by. But guys, with that, I got to get back to work. So y'all have a great one. Love each and every one of y'all. Would not do this without you. Appreciate all the support. Get out there and do something cool for somebody. Guys, chances are somebody needs it way more than you know. And with that, that is a wrap. Adios.